Raghav, and the next few minutes, rather several minutes, we're going to talk about how to have or manage and navigate through difficult conversations. So let me start with the story of why we are talking about this. So Kanika and I were talking about a week ago, right? So on how best I could contribute to you guys in less than an hour, and this happens to be my expertise as well. But why I really think we should learn to have difficult conversations is if you think about it, any important conversation in your life is a difficult conversation, right? So whether it is talking with your parents, let's say to get a little more money, or talking with your professor for an extended deadline, um, asking a girl out, asking a guy out, everything is a difficult conversation, right? So once one of my clients, he comes to me and says, you know what, Raghav, the best way to handle a difficult conversation is to not be in it. But I don't think that's an option, because constantly having difficult conversations every day, whether you like it or not. The usual word that you use is conflict, right? So conflict management is the word that you use, but we try and de-escalate it, and we come to some kind of a conversation. All right, so let's get to it. Before that, a little bit about myself. I've spent most of my time, my career in two places. One in organizational development, and secondly in conflict management, right? So when I talk about conflict management, I worked with armed conflict. I've worked with militia. I worked with labor unions, religious leaders, a lot of religious leaders, political leaders, any stakeholder that you can think of. Worked in Asia and Africa, in India, Cambodia, Philippines, Central African Republic, South Africa, quite a few places. Just putting it out there, because the question, if I were you, the question would be, in my mind would be, what authority do you have to talk about something as important as this? I might not have the authority, but I have helped people have difficult conversations. So enough of bragging about myself. Let's get on to it. First question is, so what are difficult conversations? What qualifies as a difficult conversation? So you see Calvin here and his friend in a very, they're pretty much screaming at each other. So usually in a difficult conversation, we feel strongly about the subject. You want to talk about it passionately. You have a strong opinion. So emotions are high. That's number one. Number two, we are very invested in the outcome. So the outcome of the conversation is very important to you. For instance, let's say you're going to your boss to ask for a raise, or you're going to your boss to ask for a new project, right? So the outcome, which is a new project or more money, is very important to you. So then it becomes a difficult conversation. Third, it's not only the outcome, your relationship is also important. Let's take the same boss as example, and you're applying for leave, right? So you want let's say a month's leave to go on a vacation with your boyfriend or your girlfriend. It is not enough if you get what you want. You need the relationship with your boss also to be good, right? So the relationship becomes important as well as the outcome. The last one is there are potential losses, meaning you can lose a relationship, you can piss the other person off, you might not get what you want, and so on and so forth. Let me give you an example of a difficult conversation that happened recently. I have two people reporting to me in my team, and one of them is always late. She's an amazing worker. She's very hard. She's fantastic, but she just can't get to the office in time or to anything in time. The other guy who is in the team was constantly getting pitched. They were amazing friends. They were very good work colleagues, but this was something that they were not able to work it out. So I said, boss, sort it out. You're in a company which you're going around telling people how to have difficult conversations, right? Why don't you sort this out? And the conversation was not easy. There were emotions. People were getting pissed off. The outcome was very important to both of them, right? That they worked together really, really well. They, of course, had a relationship. They were colleagues, and they had to remain colleagues. They had to work together. And if the conversation were to break down, the loss would be very high. So just to give you an idea of what we are dealing with. Okay, so why don't you guys take about 30 seconds and you can answer this in the chat box. Who was the last person with whom you had such a difficult conversation? Who was this, or who is this one person who you usually have difficult conversations with? Just take 30 seconds and key in your answers, guys. Father. We have needed saying the father, right? Yeah, my father is a tough guy. All my conversations with him is difficult. Sister, yes. Your friend. A friend. Groupmate. President of my college. Best friend. Boyfriend. Thank you. Finally. Crush. We have an interesting group here. Dad, younger sister. Not bad. If you manage to have a conversation with your crush, you're getting somewhere, right? Professor, teacher, traffic police. I like this group. Father with an angry girlfriend. That's a good one. College mentor. Good, guys. So this is just to get your get the juices flowing. That's to establish that we constantly have difficult conversations and we need to find a way to deal with it. Next, move on. So let's figure out first what is actually happening to us in a conversation like this. So roughly it is, I would say the webinar is going to be 2 sections. The first section we're going to see what is happening to us in a conflict or when you are in an argument. Second half we'll figure out how we can deal with it effectively. So 1 second, having trouble. Okay, why don't you guys close your eyes for a minute? Close your eyes for a minute and imagine yourself in a heated conversation with this person, with your father, with your girlfriend, who you thought of in the previous question, right? What is actually happening here? Let's say the other person is very upset. I'll guide you through the process. Just close your eyes. I'll tell you when to open it up. The other person is upset. You're upset. You want something from the other person. You're saying you're starting to talk. You're not sure how to talk about it. You want something at the end of this conversation. The other person also is in the very same boat, right? Memories are coming in. You're saying something. You're hearing something that you don't want to hear. Your blood pressure goes up. You're getting irritated. You're getting frustrated. You feel like you're not sure what you want to say right now, though you know that you're full of emotions, right? And slowly you're starting to feel like I don't want to be in this conversation anymore. Why did I even get into this at this point? Like my client said, the best way to get out of a difficult manage a difficult conversation is to not be in it, right? Okay, open your eyes. In one word, just key into the chat box. How do you feel right now? Now that you went through about 30 seconds of that difficult conversation, how do you feel right now? Agitated, stressed, anxious. Exactly. So just going angry in capital letters. That's what I'm talking about. Thought about how the other person might be taking our words. That's a good one. So we're going to talk about that. So the whole idea here is that just going through this process for about 30 seconds pisses us off, right? We get agitated, we get angry. But then when we are actually there in the conversation, how do we navigate? And that's exactly what we're going to see. Guys, for the next 5 to 10 minutes, I would really want you to pay a lot of attention. So, because as we saw in that simulation, a lot of things were happening to us, and everything is controlled by this one really complicated tool in our head, which is the brain. So, it is absolutely important for us to understand what is happening in our brain during a conflict, during an argument, and then we'll go to how to manage that. You will feel like you're in a 6th standard science class for the next 5 minutes. bear with me because I'm actually very pissed with our education system about how they've not told us about this, right? The first time I heard about this was when I was 23, 24 years old, and that's, I think, ridiculous. We should be hearing about this much, much earlier. So bear with me, next 10 minutes, interesting stuff, but a little bit of science, and then we'll get to the exciting part of it. So our brain, in very simple terms, can be divided into three parts. Okay. The first, we are not talking about the cerebrum, cerebellum, medulla oblongata that we've learned. This is slightly different. I've simplified it enough for this context. So let's understand this. The first part of the brain is called the reptilian brain. The red part of the brain, the red part that you can see in the diagram, that is the reptilian brain. So this is the oldest part of the brain. It controls the body's vital functions, the heart rate, breathing, the body temperature, the balance. The main function is to help with survival, right? So every time you do something for survival, it is because the reptilian brain is acting. For instance, you have a hot iron box and you're touching the iron box and then you're taking your hand, you're withdrawing. Which part of your brain is working? Your reptilian brain is working. You're walking across the street, there are vehicles coming. The minute there is a bus that comes near you, you jerk back. Which part of your brain is making you do that? It's the reptilian part of the brain, right? So the reptilian brain is very reliable because it's very consistent. Again and again and again, it does the same thing. Just imagine if the part of the brain which is responsible for your heart rate and survival is not reliable, right? So it's going to be a big problem. But the downside is that it is rigid. It can't change. It's very difficult to train the reptilian brain to do other things. This is the interesting part here. So imagine when we were talking about being in an argument or a difficult conversation, and you might have heard of this word, phrase, fight or flight response, right? You either want to fight, you want to abuse, you want to say difficult things, you want to attack the other person, or you want to run away. So it is the reptilian brain which makes you do that, because when you attack, you're surviving. When you're running away, again, you're surviving. So the brain is making you do these things. Okay, so pretty much to sum it all up, your reptilian brain is instinctual. It works automatically. All right, that's all you need to remember. Second part of your brain is called the limbic brain. The green portion, center portion, is the limbic brain. It is involved in primal activities related to food, your hunger, the need to have sex to reproduce, smell, bonding needs, right? The things that you feel towards other things and people. So all this is in the limbic brain. Protective, loving feelings and artistic sensibilities, right? Yeah, so basically it is the seat of emotions. Anything to do with emotions, anything to do with feelings, it's your limbic brain, the green part of the brain, that is taken care of. Okay? All you have to remember, summary is the limbic brain is the emotional brain. Okay? Great. So we are down to the reptilian brain and the limbic brain. The third, probably the most important part, it's called the neocortex. I don't like the name. Wish it was much less complicated, but that's what we have to deal with. So this is the biggest part of the brain. As you can see, the blue section, it's huge. It makes language, speech, and writing possible. It is the seat of logical thinking, right? So if you're thinking at all, it is happening in the neocortex. Allows us to see ahead and plan for the future, right? Planning, visualizing, thinking about critical thinking about what to do next, what the other person will do next, and preempting things. All of this happens in the neocortex. Voluntary movement, shaking your hands, moving your legs, moving any part of your body, the neocortex is controlling that, and processing sensory information. Again, all you need to remember here is neocortex is the thinking brain. Summary, we've almost gotten through it. Huh? The 6th standard biology class is over. The human brain, the neocortex is the rational of the thinking brain. Limbic brain is the emotional or the feeling brain. The reptilian brain is the instinctual or as they call it, dinosaur brain, because it's the oldest. Okay, cool. Now, let's take a look at this comparison of mammal brain. You have the rabbit, you have the cat, you have the monkey, and you have the human being. If you see slowly from left to right, the sizes of all the brains are increasing. You can see the reptilian brain, the limbic brain in black, the neocortical brain in gray. And if you see in human beings, the human beings have the biggest neocortex, the biggest thinking brain. The limbic brain is also the biggest in human beings. Just to see that the rabbit is all it is concerned about is survival. But the human beings are not only concerned about survival, they're concerned about emotions as well as thinking. All right. One bit of information that you need to remember, these are constantly interacting with each other. They are not working in their own silos. They are constantly interacting with each other. The thinking brain, the instinctual brain, and the emotional brain. All right. So now that we have our language straight, during a difficult conversation, what exactly happens? What happens is brain gets hijacked. Okay, so this is the best analogy. Again, visualize yourself in a flight, in an aeroplane, and you're sitting. You know that you're going to go to a destination. Let's say you're flying from Delhi to New York, and you have the pilot, you have the co-pilot, you have the cabin crew, you have the air traffic controller in the ground who's helping the flight in its path. All of these guys are the let's imagine all of these guys are the limbic brain, the neocortex, the reptilian brain. So there's somebody taking care of survival, somebody taking care of the thinking, and so on and so forth. Now, imagine all of a sudden, 4 passengers get up. They say they're going to hijack the plane. They control the cabin crew, and they tell the co-pilot to change the destination from New York to London. Okay. So the analogy is the conversation was going all right. Your brain was working normally. You know what your destination of the conversation was going to be. What was the destination? The destination was a higher rise, a pay hike, or a yes from your boyfriend or a girlfriend, or more money, or a 1 month holiday, whatever it is. All of a sudden, your brain stops working because it has been hijacked. And who's hijacked? So there's this very small bit. If you see, there's a green bit right at the center of the limbic brain. Can you see that? So the green bit is called the amygdala. So this amygdala is the culprit here. So it basically hijacks the complete brain. And you know what happens? The neocortex stops working. So what is the neocortex? It is the thinking brain. So you're right in the middle of that conversation. You're trying to have this important conversation, and something that the other person said. Let's say he used a difficult word, or let's say he called you stupid, or let's say he said you're not doing a good job. You don't like to hear that, or some memory of the other person comes to you, and you're getting a little upset. What happens is the amygdala gets triggered. It says, you know what? Stop thinking. And then it cuts off the neocortex, and all you have access to is the emotional brain and the instinctual brain that is required for survival. You cannot think, you can only feel, or you go into the fight or flight mode. I personally believe there's one more mode called the freeze mode, right? So I used to go into this freeze mode. So when you're in a difficult conversation and somebody asks you something, your mind goes blank. Have you noticed that? A lot of us do that. We don't fight or we don't go away. It just goes blank. Like recently, I had a call with a colleague of mine, and I was having a good conversation normally. And all of a sudden, I said, "Boss, you didn't submit this report. It was supposed to come to me yesterday." And then he's like, "Sir, this, that, yesterday, words were not coming out." And this is very, very normal because what happens in your head is full of amygdala was triggered. It hijacked the brain, and it was full of hormones, and you had basically gone into a freeze mode. He can't fight me, he can't run away from the conversation, so he froze. Okay, so this is what happens in your brain. Now we know what happens. Now let's see what can be done to deal with this. Okay, so I have 5 main points that can be followed to make conversations much better. The usual advice that you get from people is that, you know what, don't get upset in this conversation, don't get angry, right? As if we don't know that we shouldn't get angry, or we shouldn't get upset, or we shouldn't get frustrated. We know that we shouldn't do this, but we are not able to not do it. We are constantly doing this, right? So I have 5 tips, and before that, I want to show a small demonstration to establish the fact that our brain does not understand this word called don't. Our brain just does not understand this. I'll prove it to you. Can you all close your eyes again? I'm making you close your eyes a lot. So close your eyes and follow this instruction. Don't think of your mother. Don't think of your mother. Don't think of your mother. Can you open your eyes and then type in the chat box, what do you think of? Mother, mother, mother. If we only focus on don't, we won't think about anything else. Correct. So the minute you say don't think of something, that is exactly what our brain does, right? I don't know what the logic, what the science behind that is, but it needs a story. So what the brain is telling you is, okay, you're saying don't, now tell me something else to fill that gap, right? So when we see a wet floor in a mall, what do? When they say don't touch that wet floor or don't touch the wet paint, the first instinct is to go touch it, right? Okay, so let's see what we can do about it. Close your eyes again. Close your eyes again and follow this. Don't think of the color red, think of the color green. Don't think of the color red, think of the color green. Don't think of the color red, think of the color green. Open your eyes. Can you type in the chat box what you thought of? What came to your head? Green and red, leaf. We have a creative person. Both red and green. Money, Christmas, both the colors. Man, we have some interesting people here. Okay, correct. So usually, almost all of you have said both. So what would have happened? First, your brain would have gone to the color red, and then it would have gone to the color green. So what needs to be told is, what needs to be done is, it's not enough to tell somebody to not do something. You'll have to tell the other person what to do when they are not doing that. Okay, all right. Enough of philosophy. Let's get to the first point. First point is don't react, instead respond. So we've heard a lot of this, don't react but respond. Let's see what this actually means. What is reaction? Reaction is something that's automatic, whereas response is deliberate. So a reaction comes from the reptilian brain, the survival. You jerk back when a bus comes. That's reaction. Response is something you thought of. You plan to do this and then you're doing it. So that's the difference between react and respond. So there is some kind of scientific evidence behind this ancient advice of count to 10 before you respond when you're angry, right? So what happens is this hijack that we're talking about usually happens for about 6 to 9 seconds. The peak of the hijack is about 6 to 9 seconds, and then it slowly comes down. And that's why they say, wait for 10 seconds, don't respond immediately. That's very useful. Take a deep breath. This is very simple advice. Take a deep breath. Why take a deep breath? Because A deep breath usually lasts 10 seconds. Secondly, your focus goes to the breath and you're taken away from the object that's getting you agitated or frustrated. This is a slightly more difficult thing to do, but you can still do it. Is name what you are feeling. Like what you just did. You said you're angry, you're stressed, you're feeling anxious, you're feeling frustrated. Instead of showing it, name that emotion and tell it yourself. I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling pissed off. I'm feeling frustrated. Don't tell the other person yet. You can actually. That is better than screaming at the other person. But tell yourself. That will automatically bring your blood pressure down. Last but the most important thing of this, probably this entire seminar, is listen. Listen to the other person. Listen to them very, very, very carefully. The minute the other person understands that you're listening, they're going to feel much, much better. It's as simple as that. Everybody wants attention. Everybody likes to be listened to, including you, including me. I'm feeling good because I think you guys are listening right now, right? So that's the most important piece of advice in this slide, at least. Number one, don't react, instead respond. Number two, don't blame, instead acknowledge, right? So the easiest thing to do is to blame another person when you're in a difficult conversation. No, sir, I did not do this. He did this. You did this. Why did you do that? All of us know that that never gets you to where you want in the conversation. Instead, there is something beautiful called acknowledgement that you can do. Let's see what acknowledgement means. Acknowledgement is simply showing that you have understood. Okay, acknowledge simply means showing that you have understood something. What is this something? It's facts as well as feelings. Okay, so let's say I'm your professor. I'm very pissed off. You've come to me with your report, but you submitted it very, very late. I'm very pissed off. I'm screaming at you. I'm saying you've not done a good job in the semester, and now you're again late, so on and so forth. You know what's the best way to handle that? Is to say, sir or madam, I can see that you're very upset. I can see that you're very angry. I'm sorry if you want to apologize. What I hear, what you're saying is that I've not done a good job in the semester. You're also telling me that I cannot repeat this again, and that I should start giving my submitting my assignments on time. If you heard this carefully about what I just told you, there were two things I did. One, I showed the professor that I understood the facts. When I say facts, it is the content of what the professor was telling me. That I was not doing this, I was coming late, I can't do this anymore, so on and so forth. I was also showing that I understood the feelings. That she was upset, she was angry, she was pissed off, she's frustrated, she's probably disappointed, right? So, guys, I can guarantee you this. The minute you tell them, you acknowledge both the facts and feelings, show the other person that you've understood both the facts and feelings in what they've said, they're going to feel very, very differently. Immediately, the minute they feel that they've been understood, they'll calm down. Or they'll slowly start seeing you not as the villain, but as an ally, right? Very important point. Acknowledging does not mean that you're agreeing, right? So in this example, you're not agreeing to the fact that you've not done a good job over the semester. You're not agreeing to the fact that you're lazy, but you're acknowledging that that's what your professor thinks of you at this point. That is very important. Again, acknowledge, show that you've understood what the other person is saying. Acknowledgement does not necessarily mean that you agree. If you're saying you're sorry, that means you're agreeing with them, right? But the most important thing is not to agree. The most important thing is to show that you understood what the other person is saying. What is this in other words? Empathy, right? So I hate using this word. Because it's been bandied about so much. Everybody uses this word, empathy nowadays. It's lost its meaning. But empathy is merely putting yourself in the other person's shoes and seeing the world as they see it. That's all. Empathy is that. Again, It is not agreeing to their worldview. It is merely seeing the world through the other person's eyes. In this situation, what I'm doing is I'm putting myself in the professor's shoes and trying to see the world through her eyes, right? Second point, don't blame, instead acknowledge. Point number 3, don't defend. Instead, ask questions. The other instinct, what your reptilian brain, the reptilian brain is great at survival. So it helps you survive by saying that you did not do something wrong. And that's absolutely, it's basically a very important but a stupid part of your brain, the reptilian brain. So all of us know that defending gets you nowhere. The minute you say, no, I did not do it, that means that makes the other person think that you did it all the more. And even if you, let's say you are being accused of something and you want to get out of that, it is not useful to defend. Instead, first, ask questions. If there is one most powerful tool in language, in conversation, it is the power of a good question, right? So imagine yourself in a room and there is one person, let's say all of you have gone through group discussions, I'm sure. Let's say you are in a group discussion and there is one guy or a girl who's taking over, who's a rock star. They're taking over the entire room and they're saying amazing things. You're getting a little insecure. He's scoring all the points. I don't know what to do, so on and so forth. Do you know what is the single best way to, change the focus or start focusing on the things that you want to say? It's not by counter arguing. It's not by making a better point. It's by asking a question. The minute you ask a question, you're making other people think, and focus also comes to you. So besides this superficial advantage, let's see in a difficult conversation what asking questions actually, how it helps. Why do we ask questions? So the professor is pissed off with me. Now I want to get a little more information about why he's pissed off, right? Or why we are even in this difficult conversation. Second, to help them explain their point of view better. Most of us are not good at communicating. Okay, it's a blanket statement. You can hold me to this anytime. Most of us in this world, most of us human beings are not good at communicating. In a difficult conversation, when emotions are high, it is even more difficult to communicate, right? So they might not be communicating well. You can ask questions to help them explain their point of view better. Okay. So let's quickly see 2 or 3 kinds of questions that you can ask. One of the most common is close-ended questions with either/or questions or something specific to get some specific information. For instance, when did you arrive? What did you do? Do you want coffee or tea? I'm sorry. Do you like this or not? Do you like this plan? All these are yes or no and gives very specific answers. These are okay. Close-ended questions are okay, but they are not the greatest questions to ask in a difficult situation. Why? Because it doesn't open them up. They'll just say something and then stop. But what do you want? What do you need right now? You need more information. You need to understand the point of view better. You need to help them open up completely. That's where open-ended questions come in. This provides scope for discussion. What are open-ended questions? Can you tell me more about how you're feeling this way? Can you tell me more about my thesis? What is your opinion on my argument? How do you feel about this class? Do you think I've been doing this really well? So these kind of questions are open-ended questions and opens the other person up for discussion, right? So then you can start talking slowly. Now, quick exercise. This question, don't you think he should be allowed to go? Take 30 seconds and key in your chat box. Do you think this is a close-ended question or an open-ended question? Don't you think he should be allowed to go? I like these guys who answer immediately. Makes, gives me encouragement to talk more, no? Closed, open, closed, closed, closed. Open, closed, open, closed, closed, open. Closed, open. Okay, so we're getting a mix of answers. We're getting closed and open. This was a trick question. I'm feeling a little trashy because both. Someone says both, kind of. But what was this was, I'm feeling a little trashy because I trapped you, but that's the only way to learn. It was a leading question. What was a leading question, and why is there a danger sign next to it? A leading question is not a question at all. It is your opinion disguised as a question. So what are you saying there? You're basically saying he should be allowed to go. And you're disguising it as a question. Saying, don't you think he should be allowed to go? You know what it does to the other person? It irritates the hell out of them. Because they know that you're trying to manipulate them. You're having a difficult conversation with not a stupid person. Mostly, if it's a difficult conversation, it's because some way they're smart. And they'll find out that you're trying to manipulate them. Or even if you're not, that is how you come across. You come across as you're manipulating. So try your best not to use leading questions at all. Instead, you can say, let's say you're talking to me. You can say, Raghav, I think he should be allowed to go. What do you think? Right? So this is very clear. This is very straightforward. You're telling me your opinion, and then you're asking me what I think about your opinion. Great. So why is this not? I would say this is not even a question, boss. Okay, I'll tell you why. What is the most important aspect of a question? Most important aspect of a question is something called curiosity, right? The idea that you want to know something new, the idea that you want to know more. In this example with your professor, you want to know more about why he thinks so, why he doesn't think highly of you, or why he's so pissed off. And where does curiosity come from? Curiosity comes from ignorance. When I say ignorance, I'm talking about ignorance of what the other person is thinking or doing right now. Let's say I go into this conversation thinking in my mind that this professor is okay. I don't know if it's if I can use abusive words here. So I'll say, let's say you're going. Let's say you think your professor is not a nice person. Okay, he's like that. That's how he does. That's how he talks to the other person. He's not a nice guy. He keeps talking like this about everyone else to everyone. Always ill-mannered, ill-tempered. He's not very smart. You're smarter than your professor. All of us are smarter than our professors, no? That's something all of us believe. If you have all this shit in your head and you're going, you're not ignorant, boss. Right? So you have the answer. You have the answer already. When you have the answer already, you are not going to ask a good question. And you're going to ask a leading question. You're going to try to manipulate him. You're going to try to defend. You're going to try to attack. You're going to try and prove that you're right. And it will not work out. The best way to get into a difficult conversation counterintuitively is with a blank mind and with an interest to understand the other person more. Okay. By the way, we sell this for thousands of dollars. I'm giving you a lot of stuff for in about 45 minutes. So we're almost at the end of the seminar. 2 more to go. Very interesting point. I am not going to touch on this too much because I don't think this webinar can handle this concept. It's a rather deep concept. But don't be stuck at positions. Move to interest. I'll just introduce the idea. I'll just throw it at you. I will ask you to go Google it and understand it by yourself. What are positions? Positions are the demands that we make on others when we are upset or in the heat of a conversation. These come across as strong, inflexible statements. I will not submit this by tomorrow. I will only submit this by next week. I will not do this. I will only do an internship in the marketing stream. I will not do an internship in the finance stream. I am not interested in this. So all these things are positions. This is what we say in a conversation that we want. Be careful. This is not what we want. This is what we say we want. Now, interests are those that lie under these positions. They are neither communicated well nor understood well. The most interesting part is I myself, I might have a position, but I might not understand why I have a position. Understand the interest under that. The same example. I don't know. I will not submit it by the end of this weekend. Is a position. Why you will not submit it by the end of this weekend is the interest. right? So let's say you go to your boss and say, sir, I can't do this by the end of this, by Friday, I will not submit this report. He is obviously going to get pissed off. And what will his position be? You'll have to submit it by the end of the Saturday. You're saying, no, I can't. He's saying, yes. How will you ever resolve a conflict when both of you are stuck in these positions? There is a very simple way to do it, is to ask the question why and find out what you really want. What you really want, in most cases, is not to not submit the report by Saturday. What you really want is probably to spend time with your girlfriend, spend time with your boyfriend, spend time Netflixing, or taking some rest, or doing another project and not this project. So once you start talking about these are the interests under your position, which is I will not submit it by Saturday. Once you start talking about this, then there is scope for discussion, there is scope for resolution, there is scope for conversation, right? So I will let you do this. I'm not going to talk, but this is a fantastic concept. You will be, you'll be surprised how very difficult conflicts can be resolved once you move them from the position to the interest level. I would love it if you can Google this, the Camp David Accords. So this was a peace deal that was brokered between Egypt and Israel by the US on something called the Sinai Peninsula, right? And the whole thing was resolved just because Jimmy Carter, who was the US president then, and his team asked one important question that helped both Egypt and Israel move from positions to interest. I'm not going into this case. Google it. It'll blow your mind. It's fantastic. And you will see parallels. You will see parallels to, I guess most of you are from the Indian subcontinent. You will see parallels to Kashmir. What is Pakistan's position? Pakistan's position is, I want Kashmir. What is India's position? I want Kashmir. What are the Kashmiris' position? I want Kashmir. As long as we are stuck in these three positions, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to come to the conclusion that nothing's going to happen. We're gonna continue where we are, right? Kanika, do I have 5 more minutes?
Definitely. You have 10 more minutes if you need.
Okay, fantastic, great. We're doing well with respect to time. Last one, my favorite one of all of this is don't give up, but take responsibility. Often my clients, you know what they say? I went yesterday. I tried not to manipulate. I had this difficult conversation with my boss. I followed all your advice. I tried to be curious. I tried to be ignorant. I couldn't do it. It wasn't happening. Boss, if you expect it to happen in one conversation, it's not a difficult conversation, right? You're not going to get what you want in one conversation. And if your instinct is to give up and say, you know what, that fellow is like that, he will not understand. There is no way to go, right? So don't give up, take responsibility. I'll tell you why I'm saying this. You know what we are doing when we are trying to convert a difficult conversation into a good constructive conversation? We are fighting with our biology, right? Our brain is getting hijacked. Our reptilian brain is saying, do this, defend, blame. Our limbic brain is telling you you're pissed off, you're angered, you're frustrated. Don't talk to him. Ask him to, get out. You get out. Quit this job. This is what is happening in your head, and you're fighting millions of years of evolutionary conditioning and biology. And if you think you can fight it and come out victorious in one conversation, it's not going to happen. You're going to fall on your face. You're going to face failure. You're going to make a fool of yourself. The only thing to do is to go back and try again. And I can assure you it's going to happen. Because these 4 points, you master these 4 points, you're going to be at a very, very different level. The attitude needs to be, let's say you fail in a conversation. The conversation didn't go well. Everybody got upset. You didn't get what you want. You gave up. The attitude has to be, I can ask better questions. I should have listened more. I should not have reacted at that point. I can acknowledge better. I should try and understand her point of view more clearly. I can explain my point of view more clearly. I didn't do it, and that's why I failed in the conversation. The minute you take this attitude, you're at a very, very different level, and you're going to succeed very, very soon, right? favorite quote by this guy called Freeman Peake Jr. I have no idea who he is, but he said something really good. Nothing is so simple that it cannot be misunderstood. Nothing is so simple that it cannot be misunderstood. The simplest of things would be absolutely the other person can misunderstand it completely. Like we say, we are not trained to communicate. We are horrible communicators, all of us. And in a difficult situation, it only becomes even worse. I'll give you a sample. Let's say I've spoken to you for 45 minutes. Let's say we have about 176 of you, right? So let's say we ask all 176 of you what you understood from this webinar. Let's say just about one topic. Let's say about positions and interest. All of you will give me different answers. Everything that we say is understood so differently by the other person, right? And the best attitude is to take the onus and the pressure and the stress on ourselves. Let's say you tried this conversation with your professor and they didn't answer it properly. You didn't get what you want. Your thinking must be, I didn't explain myself properly, or I didn't understand the professor properly, right? It can't be he didn't understand what I did. It should be, I need to explain my point of view better. All right. Okay. So we've pretty much covered the most important points in, I would say, conflict resolution and peace building, let alone managing difficult conversations. But did you notice something? Was there any common point? I think I'm going to give a chance for you guys to share. It's not an easy question, but what were we doing here? What happened in the conversation? There was a hijack. Can you type in your keyboard chat boxes? What were these 5 points all about? What were we doing? The problem was the hijack, and we were trying to do something here. What was it? Not a very easy question, but just type whatever you think. Not giving up, definitely. Activating the rational brain. Yes. Come on, one more answer. I'll move on. Trying to avoid hijacking. Beautiful. Exactly. Controlling our brain, learning to negotiate better. What we were trying to do was reversing the hijack, right? Don't react. If you see, we were reversing the hijack and we were trying to give control to the thinking brain, the neocortex. All the words on the left, react, blame, defend, stuck at positions, giving up, all of these are consequences of your emotional brain and your reptilian brain. And all the words on the right, respond, acknowledge, ask questions, interest, taking responsibility. All of these are consequences of you giving control to your rational brain. Basically, you're giving control back to the thinking brain, cutting off the emotional and instinctual brains. All right, so this is where I'm going to stop. I'm going to hand it over to Kanika. One of the things, before we get into thoughts or questions, one of the things that you can do is feel free to look me up on LinkedIn. And in case you're struggling with something, you've been having difficult conversations, I will be happy to help you based on my time, of course, but you can reach out to me. I'll be happy to help you in any way I can. Kanika?
Thank you so much, Raghav, especially for such an insightful session. I think that this was one of the best sessions that I attended because I have a lot of problem with having difficult conversations. I'm very bad at them. So I think I can work on it now. Anyway, I think students, you're allowed to ask any questions. If you want to put it down on the chat, that would be great. If you want to speak out your questions, just write it on the chat that you want to talk, and I will unmute you. I cannot allow you to unmute yourself. Could you? Okay, so Purva Jain is asking, can you give an example of how to move from position to interest in professional environment?
Okay, so Purva, thanks for the question, and Ayushi, thanks for your appreciation. The primary, we need to go step by step, but the simplest answer, there's a beautiful question called why. Okay, the minute you ask this question, why, automatically you start talking about interests. I'll give you another example. Let's say somebody is asking for a raise and the boss is saying no. Okay, The position of the employee is, I want a hike. The position of the boss is, I don't want a hike, right? So these are positions. The minute the boss asks, why do you want a raise? A whole host of issues opens. He might want a raise because he wants more money for his child. He might want a raise because he's not working on an interesting project and he thinks his job will become more interesting if he gets more money. So the problem might not even be the money. What is he asking? He thinks he wants money, but the problem actually is that he wants a more interesting project. Okay, the short answer would be ask the question why a lot more. Don't say why. Ask it nicely. They'll open up. Okay, so Kanika, should I just go ahead with the questions that I'm seeing on the chat box?
Yes, definitely. You can go ahead.
Just tell me when you want me to stop, huh?
Sure.
How do you decide when to cut off, when we need to put a stop, keep going on with the conversation? Rishabh, I'm guessing that you're actually saying that you're asking, sometimes people start bullshitting, right? They keep talking on and on and on, and wait, when do you put a stop to that? That is what I'm understanding from what you're saying. If that's what you're asking, when you're in a heated conversation, you just don't put a stop. You just don't. You just wait till the other person gets all the toxicity out, right? So they have so much in their head, boss, and they want to get it all out. Let them detox, completely detox, and don't put a stop. One of the tragedies of human life is that we are not willing to listen to other people's stories. It's a bloody tragedy. Yeah, let them talk. Let them talk. And I don't think at this level, I think most of you are freshers. I don't think at this level you need to cut off the other person. Just let them talk, but your response can be assertive. We can talk about that later, Rishabh. We can take it offline if you want. Somebody says, can you share your PPT? I will think about it. I want to share it, but there are some issues involved. Let's see if I can do it. And I'll send it to IF and they can send it to you. I'll just remember your name. Karthikaya Sahu. All right. Next. Thank you guys for putting up with me. How to deal with higher authority person if she is very rigid with his or her opinion? Good question. Nayan, I would say just try and see if you can apply these 4 to 5 points as much as possible. That is the answer that I want to give you. I know it is very difficult to deal with some people. You cannot change them. You cannot have a different kind of a conversation with them. But listening to them, acknowledging, because these are not things that people do. Let's say you have a boss who's used to employees or reportees who are constantly blaming and defending, and you come out and say, sir, it's my fault. I see that you're upset and I see that you're frustrated. I'm sorry. Let's see what we can do about it. He will freeze. He's not going to know how to respond because he's not used to this kind of behavior. Again, go back to these 5 points, master it. You're going to have a good response. This was good. Ramya says this was great. Thank you. Should we look at consequences when we are having difficult conversations? Bhavna, thanks. Absolutely. You have to look at consequences when you're having difficult conversations. No doubt about it. The problem, so you need to be very clear what you want to get out of the conversation. But if you're stuck at the consequences, you are not ignorant. If you're not ignorant, you're not going to have curious questions, and we're going to go back to the entire trap again and again and again. So consequences, yes, be clear about what you want, but don't be stuck there. More thank yous. Yes, that's great. Just moving down. Insightful session. Thank you for the session. Entire session. One. Okay. Is there one more question? One more question. How we can practice these 5 points? Any methods? I'm not sure what you're asking, but let me tell you this. 2 things. One, try to identify what a difficult conversation is. Okay. before going into the conversation, tell yourself that this is going to be difficult. If you're getting nervous, if you're getting anxious, if you're not sure what if you're going to get it or not, it's a difficult conversation. Okay, so try to identify that and keep these 5 points very clearly in mind. This is a 2-day workshop that I filtered it into a 5-point toolkit. But these are powerful tools. Get back to these 5 points. Learn to expect and identify a difficult conversation and keep these points in your head. And maybe look at it every day for about 21 days. They keep, Robin Sharma and other people keep saying it takes about 21 days to develop a habit. So one other thing to do is to come back and do a reflective writing on how the conversation went. You can write these 5 points and see how you fared. You can give yourself a points from 1 to 5. How well you fared, right? More of a reflection. Next, how to talk to your college dean who always threatens to release your papers in 30 minutes at even the slightest problem cost. Like how to calm him down. Quick answer, Deep. This seems to be a very difficult issue, but quick answer is start thinking about why he's doing that. Why do you think he's threatening this? Put yourself in that person's point of view. Is he frustrated? Is it because too many people like you have come and asked him, come up with problems? Is he short-staffed? Doesn't he like his job? Doesn't he like you? Start putting yourself in his place. So once you put yourself in his place, you know what will happen? You will start realizing that the problem is a very different problem. The problem is not about talking to your dean, but maybe you're going to have to help him with his work, or maybe you're going to have to lobby for more people in his office so that his work is reduced. Maybe you're asking the wrong questions. Again, quick answer, start thinking about why he is saying the things that he's saying and act accordingly. Again, go back to these 4 or 5 points for reference, but if you need help, talk to me separately. Happy to help. I think we are good, Kanika.
Great. I think a lot of questions they have. Can you get? Oh, there is one last question. I think. Can you give me a clue about your LinkedIn profile? There are many Raghav Ranganathan. It's confusing.
Okay. I'm not Raghav Ranganath. Search for Raghav Ranganathan, and you can probably search it along with conflict. Mm-hmm. You should be able to find me. If not, definitely Kanika. Will have the links.
I can help you out, definitely. I think we can share his profile on your groups that you have individually. So if you want me to do that, just type yes or no on the chat box and I'll take it in consideration. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much, Raghav, for giving us your time. It was a great session. I would, I think you have answered most of the questions. Do you have any last advice for the students to how to start with this or anything before we end it? I know you've spoken a lot, but yeah.
Kanika, thank you for getting this. A part of it was, I should thank you as well, because in our conversation is what we decided that we need to do this. Thanks for IF to connecting me with you guys. Mm-hmm. Advice is go back to these 5 points and try to have fun. One bit is if you're very serious, you take life seriously, you will end up having only difficult conversations. Just try to have fun, see the fun side of every part of the conversation, and keep challenging yourself. You're going to be good. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone, for being here as well. And I will see you in the next Career Cafe session. Thank you so much, Raghav, for giving us your time.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.